Hi there, I'm Richard Sher, and it is that time to square off. So let's meet our panel because we've had a very busy week and we have a lot to talk about. Here you go. We have Republican Committeewoman Nicolee Ambrose is with us today, the debate king, Professor Rick Vatz, and two of Square Off's highly regarded in-demand attorneys, Arnold Weiner and Thiru Vignarajah. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Labor Day week and the race for the White House intensifies. Both candidates finally agreeing to debate. And we'll get to that a little bit later in today's program. First, a just released poll commissioned by the AARP and conducted by Impact Research shows the contest to replace retiring Democratic Senator Ben Cardin is now between Democrat Angela Alsobrooks, of course, former Maryland Republican Governor Larry Hogan. The poll says they are even. Both Hogan and Alsobrooks tied with 46%, with 7% undecided. Arnold, how does this look to you?
I think it's nothing short of astounding. Larry Hogan has achieved that great success so far with a party that's not behind him. But if I were to attribute this tie to anything, I think it's that Alsobrooks has not gotten her message out. She hasn't really painted a picture of who she is. And worse, her campaign has made no effort to push the fact that if Hogan gets elected, it's going to tip the Senate to the Republicans. That's something that would appeal to all Democrats in Maryland if it was in the front of their minds. And she's not pushing it.
Nicolee, would you say part of the reason that it is so close is because Hogan is such a popular person here in the state, and not that many people know Alsobrooks?
Sure, I think that's a factor. You know, Governor Hogan was frequently the most popular governor in America when he was in office. But I also think that what matters to Marylanders is that their lives are unaffordable right now. You know, we have food inflation of 20%, insurance inflation of over 50%. And when Governor Hogan was in office, he kept our state more affordable and safe. On the contrary, you have Alsobrooks, who has presided over a sanctuary county, just runaway criminal policies enabling criminals. And you can't even staff hundreds of police officer positions in our county. So I think Maryland and America wants more people who make our lives affordable and keep us safe.
Thiru Vignarajah, good to see you back.
Good to be back. You know, this is an interesting one because you've got two really effective politicians and really strong candidates. This is not always the lineup we get in local elections or state elections. I'm not going to be very partisan about this. I mean, Governor Hogan is in a dead heat in part because he was a really effective and really popular governor. And, Arnold, the thing I would maybe disagree about is I do think that Alsobrooks has tried to put that issue about the Senate tipping front and center. I think that has had a very interesting interaction with the presidential race. I think as Kamala Harris's stock has risen, people are more comfortable with a Republican senator here in Maryland. When it looked like Donald Trump was going to run away with it, I think people were very worried about giving that extra seat to the Republicans. So oddly, there's like an inverse relationship between Kamala Harris's stock and Larry Hogan's.
Rick, come on in.
Well, I think that Hogan is the very centrist that Marylanders always claim they want. I think that Alsobrooks is just the Prince George's County executive. And I think that Maryland has been a reliably blue state that hasn't elected a Republican in 40 years. But I honestly believe that Hogan represents the kind of centrists that Maryland's always claim they want, but you have the Dan Cox Republicans who either are going to stay home or not vote for him. I think that's the key. The Dan Cox Republicans have to say, we understand that they were at odds, and we understand that he was at odds with Trump, but we're going to vote for Larry Hogan. I think Larry Hogan is clearly the more qualified candidate, and I don't think there's any question about it.
Does anybody disagree with that?
Well, I wouldn't discount her qualifications. She was a very effective state's attorney, and she's taken a county that's very difficult to run, and she's run it effectively. So while it's good to say all the good things we're all saying about Hogan, I think it's a big mistake to denigrate her when it's simply not the case.
I want to underscore that because I think it would be easy to caricature either of them. This is actually a rare instance where we have two really strong, credible candidates. This is what politics should be. Richard, to your point, Hogan is the centrist that people like I expect and hope more for in Maryland politics, and frankly, I wish national politics. Angela Alsobrooks is actually also a centrist. Neither of them are the extremes of their parties. They are the kind of standard bearers we used to have in this nation and in this state. And I'm actually really proud that we have two formidable candidates competing for this important seat.
Go ahead, Nicolee. I saw you started to talk.
Yeah, I'm going to object to the consideration that Alsobrooks is a centrist. I don't think you can preside over a sanctuary county and have hundreds of vacant police officer positions and be considered a centrist candidate in any way, shape, or form. That is a far left perspective. And Americans expect their government to at least provide some sort of police basic services, that someone will show up at your house if you're being murdered or robbed. And when you have hundreds of vacancies in your police department and won't cooperate with the federal government and welcome illegal criminal aliens to your county and won't hand them over, that is problematic. That is not centrist.
Really, it's funny because I don't really want to defend Angela Alsobrooks because I really do like Larry Hogan, but I do want to sort of make sure the record is clear. I knew her as a prosecutor. She was not in the Marilyn Mosby, Larry Krasner mold. She was an old school law and order prosecutor that wanted violent criminals off the streets. The vacancies in the police departments is not limited to Prince George's County or Baltimore City. It's true in virtually every jurisdiction in America. And look, the sanctuary policy, I'm going to let her and her campaign speak on her exact position on that. But I don't think it's fair to put her in the same category as some of the extreme, progressive prosecutors with whom I myself disagree.
Rick
But
Vatz,
it depends what you do when you're under pressure. And you could have done that as a prosecutor, but if you then do that leading a county, that is what you are.
all right,
And that is what she has been most recently.
Rick Vatz, you get the final word on this.
I don't think she's as bad as Marilyn Mosby or any of the others. Matter of fact, I met her at the July 4th parade in Towson. She was very friendly. She took time to be friendly. She is much more liberal. She's not as good on Israel, certainly, as Hogan is. And there are a lot of issues on which she is far to the left, but she's not crazy left. And also this campaign has been a more decent campaign than we generally get in Maryland. And I think that is to her credit and his credit.
All right, we're going to get to the presidential race. Oh boy, we've got some late polls here first. Ladies and gentlemen, the voice of Square Off, Howard Mallison.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, the way some people drive these days, auto accidents are on the rise. If your car has been in an accident, the insurance companies cannot tell you where to take your car. That's why more and more people are trusting their auto repairs and auto maintenance to leading edge auto body and mechanical repair. They work on all makes and models. They offer free pickup and delivery anywhere in the Baltimore area. Give them a call at 410-433-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again. Baltimore is one of the best diner towns in the country and the most popular of them all are the Double T diners.
Yep.
TT means totally terrific. For breakfast, lunch, or dinner, the Double T menu offers you so many choices, you're going to want to order everything. With locations on Route 40 West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. Plus, Monday nights are lobster nights at By the Docks in Middle River, all part of the Double T family. Now back to you, Richard.
Just want to mention that Jeff Siegel and his great staff at Leading Edge, we take our cars there all the time. They look like new when they come out for a very reasonable price. So call your insurance company, go check them out. All right, here are new polls that came out Thursday showing a turnaround for Democrat Kamala Harris since the Democratic National Convention. A new Reuters Ipsos poll shows Kamala Harris leading Trump 45 to 41%, and a USA Today Suffolk University poll has Harris at 48 to Trump's 43. And Nicolee, you have some Republican polls we don't know about.
I am actually just looking at Real Clear Politics and the average that, basically has it as a 1-point race. I think what we all know is that this is going to come down to a handful of swing states. And Kamala has had her post-convention bump. It's been trending downwards as we head into Labor Day. It was really obvious to me when watching the DNC convention that the Dems were terrified to have Kamala or Tim Walz speak off of teleprompter. And the reason was illustrated during CNN's Thursday interview with Dana Bash. So I think ultimately what matters most to Americans is just the issues. And it will be on Trump to stick to the issues and stick to the policy. We have a really interesting situation where we have one team that's in office that Kamala Harris is a part of, that has run this office, that run our country for nearly 4 years. You can compare that with Trump's record when he ran this country for 4 years, and the results are just stark. The difference in how affordable our lives are, inflation, how safe the world is, whether or not we're on the precipice of World War III. These are how closed or open our border is, and if we have criminal illegals killing our American women. Just kind of basic issues, but I think Americans know the difference in those two records.
Wrap it up.
I think what's interesting is that Nicolee is promoting the amnesia that all of the Republicans have about how terrible Trump's operation of the Oval Office was. 19 people who served directly with him say that he was erratic, that he was unreliable, that he flitted from place to place. And it was all obvious back then. He completely bungled the COVID crisis when he let 1 million or so Americans die because he couldn't come out with any straight policy. He would turn the country over to Putin because he's already said, as far as I'm concerned, the Ukrainians could go to hell. This guy was ineffective as a president for 4 years, and he'll be even less effective if he gets reelected.
Go ahead, Rick, then Thoreau.
Well, there are a lot of things I would like to say to this. First of all, if you want to talk about somebody whose staff doesn't support them, I mean, Kamala Harris has the biggest turnover in staff in the history of the Senate, and also on the issues of the border wall, Medicare for all, confiscation of guns, fracking, offshore drilling. I mean, all of these issues were better under Trump than they are under Harris. And I'm not a Trump supporter. I mean, I think Trump is the biggest. He's the biggest enemy to his own campaign that you could possibly have. His consistent personal attacks. I wish he would just stop it so I could vote for him. But until he does, I don't think I'm going to. I think these two are really awful candidates. On policy, though, I think Trump has it all over the Harris campaign.
All right, Thoreau.
I think this would have been a much more interesting presidential debate if you hadn't selected the Republicans, that is, the worst possible standard bearer for what is good in the Republican Party. There are plenty of strong people that could have been the voice and the face and the nominee for the Republican Party. And they went again with Trump. And Trump's not in that position because he is the best leader or has the best policies. He's in that position because there is a cult following that has forced the Republican Party to adopt the most strange, the most extreme, the most indefensible positions. And I feel bad for my Republican friends that is the face. Frankly, just as one could have felt bad when Joe Biden was the only option for the Democrats. When we saw that debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, so many of us realized what we needed, which was a new face and a new voice. Kamala Harris has provided that. In the days right after that debate, it felt like it was over. That sniper, remember we were all talking about Donald Trump was going to be ushered in with a 60-40 majority. And now he is barely holding on to the most important swing states. I think that is a telling referendum on Donald Trump. The Republicans need to learn their lesson. I don't know when they are, but as long as they keep nominating these extreme candidates, they will never be the party they could be.
Rick, Rick.
Let me just make one quick point, and then one quick point in support of what Theroux has said, and I'm often amazed at how much he and I agree. Nikki Haley was 17 points ahead of the Democrats, and she didn't get the nomination. How in the world could Nikki Haley and Marco Rubio, two excellent candidates, how could they have been shunned aside for Donald Trump? So
can I just say one thing about what Rick just said? Just as there are a huge number of Republicans that are going to vote for Kamala Harris, there would have been a huge number of Democrats that would have voted for Nikki Haley. And that is the most bizarre feature of our nominating process, is we pick the people that are on the extremes that alienate the centrist middle. And, God bless America. That's where we are right now.
Well, and then we have this tendency to hang on to people who are superannuated, their sell-by date has long expired, and that's not good for politics for either party.
Nicolee, can you respond to Rick Vatz? I know you want to. The Theroux talking about and Rick, the other candidates that were out there, that he claims that Trump was not the best candidate. How do you feel Trump was as a president?
So as a Democrat friend was saying this weekend, she totally agrees with Trump on policy. It's his personality that she has issues with. So as Professor Vatz said, I think it's incredibly important that this race be about policy and about delivered results. Apparently 63.4% of Americans think this country is on the wrong track. That is because of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's record in office and terrible policy decisions. And the scary thing about Kamala Harris is she is now promoting outright communist policies like price controls. Do you really want to not be able to get food in a grocery store and eat zoo animals like what happened in Venezuela when they instituted price controls? Kamala Harris has demonstrated she is economically illiterate. And it is terrifying to think of someone like that who is a radical leftist in control of this country for 4 years. She did an advantage being the border czar as vice president. We definitely don't need someone with those absolutely radical policy positions in charge of this.
Arnold, hold back, Arnold, please. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz were interviewed, as you know, on Thursday night by CNN's Donna Bash. Their first sit-down interview, Harris says she no longer supports a ban on fracking and that during her time as vice president, she came to believe that the U.S. can still accomplish its clean energy goals without a ban on fracking. Who wants to address this?
Well, I would like to, because what Kamala Harris did that was very effective last night was to take all of this scare tactics, calling her a communist, making her look like she's Leon Trotsky, when she pointed out what her tie-breaking votes had been during the Biden administration. And it was clear that every time she had a choice of either going to the center and voting for something that was largely populated and popular with the American public, she went to the center. And this whole nonsense about calling her a communist is a scare tactic that unfortunately has no factual basis behind it at all. It's like it's just a means of trying to frighten people about what they hope is the unknown.
Did she not give a speech on price controls? Was that not her one and only policy speech? Is price controls not a communist policy? And do you think you will be able to eat if price controls for food are instituted in this country?
She didn't give a speech on price controls. What she did was to suggest there are various ways in which we can deal with inflation. Well, the problem is that she has policies and Donald Trump has no policies. He goes by the wind. He had no policies when he was president. And look what he's done just in the last 60 days about women's health issues.
All right.
He was all for banning abortions until that got uncomfortable. Then he said, let's leave it to the states. Then all of a sudden he gets caught up in this in vitro business. And then he flips on that. Everybody's going to get free in vitro treatment if they need it, without any idea where they're going to get it from. And then he flips once again on abortions, and now he's saying that the 6-week bans are not long enough. This is a man who is unreliable because he has no policy. His policy is whatever you want it to be tomorrow.
Here's what we're going to do.
So there's so much that is wrong in all of those statements.
Nicolee, here's the problem. We're a little short on time, and we must discuss the wreath laying at Arlington National Cemetery. So we're going to do that right after we hear from Howard once again. Howard, let's get these
Thank you,
done.
Richard. Thank you. Richard and I are proud to represent the law firm of Barry Glazer. Barry always goes the extra mile for his clients, whether it's been a personal injury, medical malpractice, or nursing home neglect. Barry and his staff, that includes an in-house doctor and a nurse, make no apologies for getting top dollar from the insurance companies. His clients are his best advertising. So next time you need a lawyer, give Barry Glazer a call at 410-547-8568. Barry gets results. Tell him Richard Sher sent you. And for special occasions, group get-togethers, or just date night, Pappas restaurants and sports bars belong on the top of your list. Enjoy their award-winning crab cake, or as Richard calls it, the fab cake, and a great selection of steaks, seafood, and other mouth-watering treats. Pappas is Oprah's favorite, and they ship their crabs all over the country, their crab cakes all over the country. 4 locations, including their newest sports bar and restaurant in Bel Air. Pappas' food, service, and atmosphere is second to none. Back to you, Richard.
Okay, Howard, thank you very much. Well, this past Monday, former President Trump, some of his campaign staff were at the Arlington National Cemetery, where Trump laid a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown as a tribute to the 13 U.S. military personnel who were killed 3 years ago during the exit from Afghanistan. In the past, Trump has reportedly, although there's an issue with substantiating this, that he called women and men in uniform suckers and losers. Trump's people say that they were invited by some of the military deceased families to appear at the cemetery on Monday. A Trump staffer, by the way, apparently argued with a cemetery official, refusing to follow the rules regarding photography at this location. And there reportedly was some pushing and shoving. What do you want to say? Rick Vatz, I know you have stuff to say about this.
Well, I have to say one thing very quickly about Arnold's claim that the flip-flopper is Donald Trump, when in fact Harris has flip-flopped on everything. And in that interview, which was a love fest, she was hardly questioned about anything. But let me also say that "suckers and losers" is a quote that has absolutely no evidence for it. He has denied. He said, "Why would anybody ever say anything like that? There's no recording of it." Snopes has said that it's false. They have no evidence for it. They say regrettably there's no evidence for it. But I think in with respect to Arlington National Cemetery, there was a mix-up there. The Trump people say that they were invited, that they were given permission, that all of this was cleared, and there was apparently one person at the cemetery who said, no, this is not the case, and there appears to be a dispute. I don't think he played it exactly the way they expected to be played at Arlington National Cemetery, but I think, as Vance has said, this is being made a big deal by Democrats when it really is a small matter.
Well, it's a small matter, but it shows you the man's character. Where was he for 3 years after those people were buried? The only time he got motivated to want to see the cemetery and see those fallen soldiers was when he'd like to make it an issue in his campaign. And he says, well, and I saw him last night say, well, the mother invited me to take pictures. She asked me to take pictures. Well, he just happened to have handy a television crew. Oh, you want pictures? Here's my 10 people from the crew. We're going to just accommodate you. The guy cannot ever own up to what he's doing. And that makes him unreliable and frankly proves once again how dangerous he is.
Go ahead, Nicolee, then Theroux.
I'm just astounded by the response on this. First of all, where were Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? Why didn't they call any of these service members' families? Why hasn't Joe Biden apologized for his disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal that led to these 13 service members' death? Why are you criticizing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for never being at these people's grave sites, much less visiting or talking to these families? It is disgraceful. Conversely, the one thing I don't hear any objections to on any other day of the week is Donald Trump has been passionately calling these deceased members' families religiously when he was in office, when he's been out of office. This is not really a disputable topic. So I'm confused that we're spending a segment debating a false story, and B, some scuffle with a photographer when there is literally nearly starting World War III in Israel, in Ukraine. Taiwan could be invaded at any moment. And this is all because of projected American weakness by the sitting administration, which Kamala Harris keeps acting like she's not running as the incumbent.
Right.
This is a remarkable revisionist history of yesterday.
Arnold,
As far as how passionate Donald Trump is about these fallen soldiers, I think you've forgotten the fact that his predecessors would meet the bodies when they would land at Andrews Air Force Base to show their respects. And when Donald Trump became president, it was just too far for him to go across the river to meet any of those bodies until he faced a barrage of press negativity. And then all of a sudden, he found the time to go meet those bodies.
Theroux, please.
Look, Nicolee and Rick are right that a lot is being made out of a relatively small event. But that is the risk that you run when you are 2 months away from an election and you try to shoot a television commercial at Arlington National Cemetery. That is a self-inflicted gunshot wound. It is expected that the Democrats are going to make a lot of it. And if the shoe was on the other foot, I would expect Republicans to do the exact same thing. This is why politics at the national level isn't very fun, because we don't get a chance to actually focus on the issues. But I have to ask, and this is one that's always bothered me, and I don't look into this the way you guys do. The one that always held me up, because it's the impression that Donald Trump gives that he can fool the masses into believing he is an actual patriot. And he does it in so many ways that seem so easily seen through, but I've never understood whether it's true or not that he actually dodged the draft. And I just want to understand, because I think I was raised in a time when that was the worst sin, that a person of privilege would avoid putting their life on the line for the country when called to service. That was the mortal sin. And I just actually don't know if anybody has the answer on whether or not he actually did that or not. I'm curious.
All right, Rick, we're running out of time, Rick, so make your response.
He had exemptions that are acceptable. I mean, I always feel bad when I'm put in the position of defending Donald Trump, who I don't think very highly of. But he did have exemptions, and you're allowed to have exemptions at that time.
And it was really because of a foot spur?
Well, there are all kinds of things that you wouldn't think.
All right, I didn't mean to go down the line.
Yeah, but we've always had exemptions. Rich people could be exempted during the Civil War if they found a poor person to pay to go in their place. The question isn't whether you have legal avenues to escape responsibility. It's whether you use them. And from what I've read in the newspapers, there is a substantial reason to believe that he manipulated the system. He has never addressed it. He has never, for example, given the medical records. He wants everybody else to give the medical records, but he carefully avoids doing it. And when Donald Trump, even Donald Trump, can't deny something, it tells you that there must be something there.
And the only reason I bring it up, is because every pretense of supporting the military feels like just that against that backdrop.
Nicolee, I want to give you 30 seconds for the last word.
I think it's important that the presidential race be focused on policy. Once again, we have this incredibly unusual situation where we have basically two sets of people who have had 4 years each. And so they need to make their case to the American public based on the record of those 4 years. And as a former leader of a youth organization, I'm fascinated particularly by how the youth and young professionals seem to be drifting towards Trump because they seem to have liked the policies they grew up under and felt they had a much more prosperous future.
All right, guys, listen, we are way over our allotted time. And I want to thank you all for tuning in to squareoff.net. Our audience continues to grow, and we are very happy to know that we're on the go. And I'm a schmo. All right. So anyway,
thank you, Dr. Seuss.
Thank you. Nicolee, good to see you again. Of course, Rick Vatz, Tharu Vignaraja, and Arnold Weiner. And I'm Richard Sher. And we'll see you again next week when once again we square off. Goodbye. Have a good holiday. Bye-bye.
Bye.